Hi, I'm Joel Johnson, Managing Partner here at Johnson Brunetti. Today we're going to be talking about how physical fitness and financial fitness work together. But before we do that, make sure you hit the bell. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so that you get automatic notifications on new content that we're going to be putting up. One of the things when it comes to your financial future is having a structure, having certain things that are automatic that you don't have to think about. I've found in my life that when I set up my environment so that things are automatic and structured for me, that I automatically am setting myself up to win. So let's talk a little bit about our money, our financial future, our retirement planning, our estate planning, our tax planning, the things that touch money when they touch you. At the beginning of the year, one of the things you should be thinking about, and if you're working with a financial advisor, hopefully you've already done this, did this at the end of last year, is it's similar to a checkup with a doctor. You want to assess where are you? And typically you'll have some kind of a history of where you've been from a physical standpoint, if we're talking about your medical condition. So you have this baseline. Well, financial planning is exactly the same way. You should be having some kind of a checkup, some kind of review, a snapshot of where you are right now compared to where you were in the past. Are you making progress? Once you get that checkup done, and again, talking about a financial checkup here, once you have that done, then you will identify areas that can be improved. And in your particular situation, it might be saving more money in a retirement plan. If you're already retired, it might be how do I increase my income without increasing risk? Could be a number of different things, but again, this is your fitness exam and your fitness goals for the rest of the year, but we're talking about your financial fitness. What are those goals and have they changed? Let's talk about goals for just a minute. Many times people get overwhelmed when they think of financial goals. They think of financial goals and they think, well, when I retire, I want to have a certain amount of money. Or maybe if you're already retired, you say, well, I want to leave a certain amount for my kids. And the problem with those goals is they're very wishy-washy goals. They're not very concrete. And so when we say we want to set your goals with you or we want to help you set those goals, they need to be very, very vivid. Think of them as a vivid vision where you're looking out 3 years, 10 years, maybe for the rest of your life and saying, this is exactly what I want my life to look like from a financial standpoint. For example, 10 years from now. That's where we want to set your goals from because it's very hard to set short-term goals when you don't know what the long-term picture is going to look like. And then once you have those goals and they're very vividly written down, then you want to adjust that financial plan to meet those goals. We always talk about a financial plan being a foundation for your future, a foundation to help buffer you, just like a foundation in a house does for the elements, right? So things are going to change in your life. There's going to be changes in the political environment. There's going to be maybe changes in your family. There's going to be health situations that come up. You might have inflation, as we've experienced recently here, where your plan may need to be adjusted. So there's a balance here. If you've got that solid financial plan, that's great, that's your foundation, but at the same time, we might need to make adjustments from time to time. That shouldn't mean ripping out your entire financial plan. It should mean adjustments. Again, talking about physical fitness, if I'm working with a trainer and he set goals for me at the beginning of the year and halfway through the year, there's adjustments that need to be made because either something I'm trying to develop isn't working well enough or we hit certain goals a lot earlier than we had to. That's very much like your fiscal fitness or your financial fitness. How do we make those adjustments? But it doesn't mean you go back and start the whole plan over again. We really shouldn't have to do that. And that reminds me of something. I heard somebody come in one time, a client came in, or actually somebody who wasn't a client yet came in, they're a client now. And they talked about how their financial advisor was redoing their plan every 2 or 3 years. And I said, well, you just mean making adjustments, right? And they said, no, he's redoing the entire financial plan, and we make these big adjustments every 2 or 3 years. Our opinion is, if you had the right financial plan in the first place, you should not have to do that. You shouldn't have to be making these big adjustments. Again, you shouldn't have to be throwing out the financial plan and redoing one. You should make little adjustments. I like to think of them as steering when you're steering a car. You don't want to make a giant steer to the left or to the right because that's very violent for the car and it could cause you to slide. You want to make these little adjustments as you're going down the road. So what's going on with the stock market? Maybe you have to adjust for that. Again, not throwing out the financial plan, but can you adjust for that? Is inflation Is the political environment changing things? Has the cost of living changed? Maybe your health insurance or your Medicare supplement, if you're already retired, is changing. How do we make those types of adjustments? And then again, I mentioned this a little earlier, but short-term goals versus long-term goals. We need to have those long-term goals, but I like to think of getting to long-term goals as just a combination over a period of time of having short-term wins. And so how do we set those short-term goals? And the first thing I think you ought to start with, again, looking out over the next year, is do I have the right income to meet my goals? Do you have the right income? Now, if you're already retired, this is easy for us to adjust, right? We can adjust the right income, and if you need more income, we just want to make sure you're not going to run out of money. While you're working, it's a little harder because you're getting a paycheck that's probably fixed, but we can adjust how much you're taking home. Or maybe we can adjust how much is coming into your bank account and immediately going out to savings. That would be an example of a short-term goal that we can satisfy, which is an income goal that will help you get to your long-term goals. Well, what are some of the things that we need to look at the beginning of a year here when we think about our financial life? Well, first of all, one of the things we want to make sure of, and a lot of people overlook this, is that we have the right insurances in place. Insurance is a way to shift risk. We pay an insurance premium and we shift risk away from us to the insurance company. It's really that simple. And so we want to make sure we have the right homeowners insurance in place, that we have the right life insurance, disability insurance, which I know many of you get if you're still working through your company. What about auto insurance? Things like, if I have my 25-year-old son driving my cars when he comes home for the holidays, better make sure I have enough insurance because, and anybody knows, a 25-year-old young man is a lot higher of a risk to an insurance company than myself, who is, getting on in life, let's just say. So life insurance, disability insurance, homeowners insurance, auto insurance, things of that nature, we want to make sure those things are in place. That would be part of a financial plan that, again, a lot of people overlook. Then you want to look at, do I have enough emergency money? Do I have enough savings where I don't have to disturb my long-term investments to meet any kind of an emergency? Let's talk about how much you're actually saving if you're still working. Try to save 15% of your income. I know for some of you that sounds like a lot of money. For others, you might be saving more than 15%. But if you have a 401k, put in enough so that with the match, you're saving at least 15% of your money. We tend to go back and look at our 401ks, look at our retirement plans, and there's this temptation to look at what funds perform the best and move the money into those funds that perform the best. The problem with that is everything is cyclical. One investment style, let's say buying small company growth stocks, will do real well and then it'll go out of favor for a while. And at the same time, while those small company growth stocks were doing well, you might have large companies or international companies that aren't doing well, and they will come back in favor. Just really the fact of being patient. Don't focus too much on the short term. Compound interest always works in your favor if you can just leave things alone. And any type of, again, we talked about physical fitness here, any type of big gain happens in small little steps by being patient and consistent. Once again, this is Joel Johnson. Really enjoyed spending the time with you today. Remember, subscribe to our channel, hit that bell, make sure you get notified as soon as we put up more valuable content like this.